And on the 3rd of January, I received a call from my mom announcing me the cancer of my dad. And the loss of my dad just confirmed that we were at crossroads and that we were taking different paths. We were welcomed by a woman that was terrible. She had zero empathy, zero sense of, welcoming people that just lost someone. She was just thinking about selling us more options. I like to believe there were signs, and I think that we should let people believe what they want, especially when going through loss, because when people are going through loss, they need hope. They need something to, to carry on. Hi everyone, welcome to Cortisol, the podcast that puts you in the shoes of a member of the European Parliament and that tackles topics that are close to your heart and raise your cortisol level. This episode is very special because it's quite a personal one. As you can see, I don't have any guests. Actually, I was supposed to have one. For several reasons, it didn't happen. And I wanted to cancel the recording of this episode. I thought maybe, okay, I'll do it next year. But then I thought about it and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm asking people to be vulnerable in my podcast. I'm asking them about their personal experience, their stories. So I may as well be brave and share with you my experience of loss, which is usually a taboo topic, something people tend to avoid talking about, but you are in cortisol, so this is the place to be to talk about this. So what I decided to do is to just take all the topics that I initially planned to tackle with my guests and just to keep them and to answer to them. So I will be my own guest. Let's start. But before going into the questions, obviously, I need to give a bit of context. I need to tell you about my story of loss and grief. And to tell you a bit about that, we need to go back in 2020 during the COVID period, which, by the way, ironically, was something that helped me to go through this difficult period because I didn't need to force myself to be social, to go outside a lot. It was a time when I needed to be by myself and to have some time alone to process everything I was going through. So, for me, when people say that 2020 was a difficult year for them because of COVID, for me, 2020 was difficult because of the loss, but not because of COVID. So, this is for the little anecdote. And so, yes, my story of loss is the following. We have to go back to January 2020. It was a few days after celebration of Christmas and of the New Year. I had some of my friends coming in Bruges for the celebration of the New Year. And on the 3rd of January, I received a call from my mom announcing me the cancer of my dad. And it was a cancer that was already very advanced. Unfortunately, a few months later, on the 28th of July, my dad passed away. So actually, it went very fast. We only had a few months together after the announcements of the sickness, and everything went very, very fast. So this is my story of loss, and this is on this story that I will try to answer to the questions I prepare initially for somebody else. And before starting, of course, I want to say a few things. First, this is a personal story. This is a personal experience. We all have different feelings. We go through different stages at different moments when we lose someone. So I'm not, I'm not saying that what I'm gonna tell right now is the experience of everyone going through some loss, but I'm hoping that by sharing, it can encourage other people to share a bit about their story, to open up if they need, to reach out for help if they need, and not only to help to their relatives, but if they need to professional help, because it's not a shame to reach out for professional help when you go through such a difficult time. So this is the main message I want to convey in this episode. So let's start with the first one, the hardest part of loss. So this was the first category I prepared initially. And when I read the hardest part of loss, I think about two things. In my case, the first thing is that I was there, I was physically there next to my dad when he had his last breath, when he passed away. And this has this carries some duality in itself, because I was relieved to be there when it was happening, because I couldn't imagine it happening in another way. I would have never wanted him to be alone, to go on the other side. For me, it was really, really important that my dad was surrounded by us when it happened. So I am grateful for the fact that I was there and I could hold his hand until the end. And by the way, I'm not judging those that do not do that. I understand that it is very difficult, and this is, to go on the duality aspect, it was also a traumatism to be there, because I literally saw him having his last breath. So I carry no judgment at all for those that are not here at the moment, at the very moment when it happens, because it's very difficult and it's images you carry with you for life after. So yeah, I would say this was one of the hardest part, definitely. And the second thing I'm thinking of when I read the hardest part of loss is the change of setting, like changing from 5 to 4. Like usually when I was thinking of my family, always the core one, it was my dad, my mom, my sister, my brother, and myself. Always 5, like the fingers of one hand. And still until today, so 4 years later, it's difficult to think, to have this concept in mind of my family, thinking of us now being 4 instead of 5. It's really something I'm struggling with, and that's why also up until now, actually, I still struggle to go back to the city of my parents, Nancy in France, because going back there is once again acknowledging that we are 4 and not 5 anymore. And it may appear to be a bit strange for some, but for me it's really this change of concept of your way of perceiving the family to change from 5 to 4 is always difficult. So yeah, I would say that this is the hardest part of loss as well, but knowing that unfortunately there are many hard parts about losing someone, and in my case, losing a parent. Now, another topic, family dynamics. I see that I am choosing the most difficult topics at the beginning. Family dynamics, I would say that in any case, this these dynamics are affected in loss, whether it is because because loss confirms some family dynamics that were already existing, or unfortunately it can just destroy totally the family dynamics that were existing. In my case, I would say that the loss of my dad confirmed family dynamics on two aspects. With my core family, so with my mom, my sister, and my brother, it just confirmed our usual dynamics that we are not very close in general. We text each other from time to time, we visit from time to time, but we are not this type of family when we are calling each other every day, texting every day, etc. We don't particularly need that, I guess, and this is how just how we always were. I think we didn't necessarily grow up in ideal conditions, so I think we were all very focused on our survival skills and on trying to grow by ourselves. But I would say then definitely that losing my father just confirmed these dynamics. And for the family in the biggest meaning of the word, with our family that is abroad, I would say that it also kind of confirmed the family dynamics, in the sense that the relationships were already damaged. And I think that this loss just confirmed that this was damaged and broken, and that there was no going back into a better setting. And of course it's always painful to acknowledge, but I think it was not a big surprise at the end of the day that this happened in this way. And I don't think it's the event by itself, that, for example, some members didn't show up at the funerals, etc. This, of course, was hurting a lot. But to be honest, I think that the relationships were already damaged. There was already a lot of poor communication. And the loss of my dad just confirmed that we were at crossroads and that we were taking different paths. But yeah, I think that at least this is a pretty universal experience when you are going through loss, definitely affecting family dynamics, whether it is about confirming how they are or totally reshifting and destroying the dynamics that were existing. And this makes me think of another topic, but I think that this will be also one of the topic after, so I'm not spoiling it. Okay, so this was the topic I was about to talk about. Cost of funerals and money-related conflicts. So I was thinking about it for family dynamics, because I know that family dynamics can be changed, if not destroyed, because of money-related conflicts during moments of loss. This is something I struggle to understand personally, because I don't understand why people would have conflicts about it, because then it means that these people expected something from the person that passed away. And this is just something it's not part of my conception of things. I don't think you should wait for somebody to die to expect some money, a house, a car, whatever. I think the most important you can carry with you when you lose someone and you love this person are the memories. So when I observe money related conflicts in families, I'm really sad, but I know that it happens a lot. And yeah, about cost of funerals, I put this topic because I think this will probably be the question to put at the vote at the end of the episode. Is that I was quite shocked by the price of funerals, and by that I mean basic funerals without any particular option on top of that. I think that it can be very difficult for some people, especially when they are alone, to carry the burden of funerals, to have these costs. And I think that everybody should be buried with dignity regardless of the money left. So yeah, I know that some support exists in some cities or in some states, but I think that there should be a selling of the prices for basic funerals. Of course, I am aware that these are still companies and it's still business and they need to make money out of it. But I am a bit shocked of, you know, the when the business aspect is too present in this kind of companies. And I'm gonna share with you a very bitter experience we had when we took care of the funerals of my dad. So we did 3 companies. We checked 3 companies afterwards to see which kind of grave we wanted for my dad. And one of these companies, we were welcomed by a woman that was terrible. She had zero empathy, zero sense of, welcoming people that just lost someone. She was just thinking about selling us more options, and she was keeping on telling us that my dad couldn't be buried in the cemetery we wanted because there was not enough space anymore. Which was not true, because we knew we all often go to this cemetery because we have other family members that are buried there, and we knew it wasn't true. And back at the time, I was, of course, too much in a pain because it was one day after my dad passed away. So the pain kept me calm, but up to this day, I think that yeah, that I could have been much more outspoken to this woman and to remind her in which company she was working. I think when you don't have any kind of empathy or sense of humanity, you shouldn't work in funeral companies. But of course, it ended well because we chose a family company actually that was much more human. We were very well welcomed. There was a lot of empathy and respect, so it was okay. But yeah, for the first one, the bad experience I was referring to, it was adding a bit to the shock of the loss. And also I was surprised because this is, I think, the most famous company in France at the national level. So I guess I would have expected, yeah, a better experience with them. Okay, next topic now. The the light changes right now. There was, yeah, there are some clouds. There were some clouds appearing at the moment I talked about my bad experience with this funeral company. So I hope you can still see me pretty well. Otherwise, I will try to maybe, I don't know, add some light during the post-production part. And the next topic is surprises, unexpected things related to loss. Yeah, the sun is coming back when I'm talking about surprises and unexpected things. I would say definitely that I got support that I didn't expect from people I didn't expect. And I'm thinking especially of the moment I announced that my dad did pass away. I received a couple of phone calls of persons that I was not necessarily very close to, but that went through similar things either a few years before or just weeks or months before, and they didn't talk about it openly, and I learned about it when they called me. And I thought it was very moving that they reached out. That, yeah, I mean, I so didn't expected anything from this particular persons that it's really warmed my heart to have their support and to have them sharing their own stories, their own pieces of advice on how to deal with the grief. Really, it was amazing. And another thing, it was not a surprise at all or an unexpected thing, but I want to talk about her and she will recognize herself. One of my best friends, from the moment I told her that my dad was sick until the day he passed away, she never gave up on me one single day. So either she was calling me, texting me, or sending me vocals. It was a lot of vocals, especially because, of course, I mean, we still had our respective duties and jobs, etc. So we couldn't, just call each other randomly like that. But there was not one day, really, there was not one day in these 6 months where she didn't check on me. And it's not only checking on me, it's she was literally giving me, nourishing me with hope when I didn't have hope anymore. And she wasn't doing it in a fake way, in the sense that I talked with her afterwards about this and I was thanking her again. And I told her, like, what was incredible is that you didn't have, first of all, these cliche things, because, I mean, if you just ask every day, how are you? It's nice, don't get it wrong. Any support is appreciated, but, of course, the person is still not doing well from one day to another. But she was here, asking concrete, direct, and, meaningful questions. And every time I was like not okay, feeling that it was about to go bad, she had this hope. And as I said, she told me, like, it's not that I wanted to give you hope, it's that I really had this hope that you would eventually get better. And sometimes she even had more hope than me. And it literally felt she was picking me up from the ground every time when she was doing that. So it's not a surprise. Once again, I knew she was a great friend already. But this, I told her, and I say it again, I will never, ever forget. And of course, I also appreciate all the other supports I had. I don't want, to do a kind of classification and do a top 3 of who was the best to support. But I really want to highlight this one because, it's not easy to support someone going through this, especially that I remember very well. Sometimes some days were incredibly hard, and I don't even know how I would have reacted myself if it was one friend that I loved in front of me being in that state. I don't know how I would have dealt with this. And somehow she found the perfect balance between giving me space, but asking concrete questions, giving me hope. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that again, because I think it would have been very, very difficult without her particular support. So yes, she would recognize herself. Then friends ghosting. So this is the opposite of what I just said, what I just shared. Friends ghosting. Yes, I have 2 examples in mind. And also, I think it's necessary to talk about distanciation in general with friends when you are going through this hardship. But first, let's talk about the friends ghosting. So I went through this for sure. I have 2 examples in mind. One of someone that I considered as one of my best friends that I met 1 year before, but I thought our friendship was very intense, very sincere. We were laughing a lot. We had the same kind of humor. Really, I thought really a great friendship. And it turned out, in a nutshell, not to go also in too much detail because I'm not here to be a drama channel, but what happened is that one day this friend texted me. I announced that my dad was sick and that it wasn't apparently it wasn't going to get better. And this friend just answered, okay, sorry, I'm so sorry for you, etc. And from this day, which was in January 2020, a few days after that my dad was sick, I never heard of this friend again. So during the whole sickness, not any message to ask how my dad was. And I was, by the way, just to give you context, people knew about what I was going through because I shared the information 3 weeks after I learned about my dad's sickness. I wanted people to know because I wanted people to understand why I was different, why I was sad, why I was struggling. So I went quite vocal about this. And so what happened is that no news during the whole period of sickness. Then I announced that my dad passed away, and I did it publicly also because I needed to do it publicly, and no message. And since then, of course, we were not in touch. I never understood why. I understand that some people told me that, it's difficult. We never know how to react because we didn't go through this thing. So you never know how to find a balance between, being there for the person without being clumsy, etc. For me, but I think it can be different from one person to another. But for me, I would say that it's still important to show your presence, even if it's clumsy a bit, even if you say, I had also one person that I like a lot, and, she approached me telling me, I'm sorry, I know what it is. I lost my grandma. I was like, it's not really the same, except maybe if you were raised by your grandma and then she had the role of a parent, then I understand. But losing a parent is quite a different experience. For me, I would describe it as losing one lung. So yeah. So just coming back to, I just wanted to say that obviously this is a bit clumsy, but at least you are present. So for example, I was not holding any grudge against this friend that was telling me that, that was comparing it to losing a grandparent. But for the one that just ghosts you while you are going through this difficult period, I guess it's a reality check, and I guess that you just know that it wasn't a real friendship. And I also have another example in mind, a friend that was complaining that I was not reaching out enough during this period. I think, again, people can understand only when they go through it. So I hope it happens the latest possible to all my friends. But general advice, I would say, don't blame people for going through loss. I think it's not a great friendship move, but yeah. So this were my two anecdotes. But then I also wanted to add about friends with who I voluntarily also took some distance, voluntarily or not, because also it was just, grief taking all my energy. But after sometimes I think it's just also natural distance that was created because I was a bit disappointed with some reactions, with the fact that people expected grief to happen like that and to have the previous version of me that was much more joyful to be back around just like that. So yeah, I think there is also a part of me that voluntarily kind of took some distance because, I felt misunderstood. And I think it's okay, it's also life. It's also, some friendship are made to last, some not. But I want to say that as well, because it's not only about, you know um, it's not only about people taking their distance. It's also about myself kind of having this natural selection going on because of this experience, because of this loss experience. Next topic is work and loss. So in my case, work, but it's a matter of personality, I guess. Work helped me a lot to go through this hardship, in the sense that I I didn't take any sick leave for right after I lost my dad, but also because I lost him when I was about to be on holiday. So in any case, I was off. Now with a bit of time, a bit of thoughts, I think I could have taken a couple of weeks to focus on my feelings and process it by myself, because I think that I really used work, as a way to avoid to think about certain things, and it delayed a bit some processes of the grief. But this was my way of dealing with it, and I personally don't regret, because I had great colleagues, great support from them. I liked my work. So yeah, no regret on that side, but a general message that if you go through it and you feel like you need help, you need time off, don't hesitate to reach out to your doctor and to be frank about what is going on, and to let them know about how you feel, and don't feel guilty for asking for help. Now, next topic, the burden of care. The burden of care. So in my case, I cannot say that I was a direct, I mean, I was a direct but not regular caregiver to my dad, in the sense that I was working in Bruges, they were in Nancy, and so I was coming back every 2 weeks for a few days. I was taking the weekend plus one day more of teleworking, because it was COVID time, so it was also more easy on that part. But the one that really took care of him every day was my mom. So I'm grateful for her patience, although it was not always easy. And I also want to say a few words about people working in this area. The nurses that came to visit my dad every day to take care of his everyday vaccination. Yeah, the level of empathy, the level of care by itself, I will never forget. I also think of one doctor at the palliative care that was very human. And this is very important, because there was another doctor that I will never forget, but for bad reasons. And I really understand that it is a difficult job, especially in palliative care, and that you have to be tough. But I think you should never lose the empathy and pedagogic aspect of, you are accompanying family going through, that is about to go through loss, and you have to explain what you are doing, basically why you take some medical decisions. And for one doctor it was not necessarily the case, but I would say that this was an exception, because most of people in this service are incredibly strong, incredibly helpful, and this I will never forget. And it's a pity that these professions are not valued more, because they are so important, so necessary. And yeah, it's very difficult for them. So I am very, very grateful. But there is so much to say about the burden of care when you are about to lose someone, not only on this aspect per se of nurses, doctors, but also about seeing the person you love getting weaker every day. It's very, very tough mentally, psychologically speaking. And yeah, I think it was also one of the most difficult part in the loss. And we arrive to our final category, final question: signs from the sky, from above. So I don't know if I would qualify those of signs. I like to believe there were signs, and I think that we should let people believe what they want, especially when going through loss, because when people are going through loss, they need hope. They need something to, to carry on. And I think we should totally respect that, as long, of course, as it doesn't hurt them, or as long as you don't see them being scammed by someone taking their money to make them believe that they have a sign from their lost ones. Otherwise, I think that it's very important to let this hope to people. They just need it. And I think as long as it doesn't hurt the person or the relatives around, we should not burden them with some pragmatism. I had this discussion with a couple of friends a few months after I lost my dad, and it was too early. And I mean, I don't hold the grudge anymore. I'm still friends with these people, but I remember it was a tense discussion because they couldn't understand my loss. They haven't lost a parent, and they arrived with their care, but it was a form of care, I guess, but with this huge pragmatism of, no, this is not possible, it cannot happen, you shouldn't believe that. And at this moment, all you want when you are trying to believe in this is you just want people to listen to you. You don't want them to give your opinion, your pragmatic opinion at that moment. So I would say that I may have had some signs. This will stay a bit on my privacy. I will not necessarily share. I think I had some, but you can also explain it very rationally once again and say that it was more my brain creating this or my brain making this connection. And also, I would say I had a lot of dreams, especially within the 6 months after losing my dad. But once again, you can explain that scientifically speaking. But yeah, for me, sometimes there were some signs, and I'm perfectly fine believing that there were signs, as I am perfectly aware that some others were just, my brain trying to protect me and to comfort me. So yeah, but I think that it's very important to respect people having a certain spirituality and trying to find a connection with the one they lost, because at the end of the day, this is all you can have once you are in two different worlds. So yeah, this was the last category. I hope that you found this more personal episode interesting. I hope at least it could speak to some of you, going through loss now, or that went through loss. Maybe you recognize yourself in some of my personal anecdotes. I hope that for some of you, maybe it will encourage you to reach out for help. If you need this help, really don't hesitate. And it is still a Curtidal episode. I still want to finish with one question for the vote. And I had two questions in mind. So this time I will not pick, I will let you pick. And I will let you decide if you want to vote on one of them or on both of them. The first one I wanted to put to the vote is to grant free psychological support for 1 year to persons grieving. I think that it should definitely be reimbursed by the states to have psychological support, even twice per month for 1 year to process this grief. Of course, it shouldn't be mandatory. Some people don't want to necessarily reach out for professional help. They manage either by themselves or talking with a friend or with someone from the family. But I think that this should be proposed, really, because it has a massive impact on the person's life to go through the grief of a parent, of a partner, of a child. So this is my first proposal for the vote. And then my second proposal for the vote, because I was hesitating between the two, is about the cost of funerals and the right to be buried with dignity and without fearing of causing too much of a burden to relatives. I would put to the vote the proposal that there is a ceiling for basic funerals, so that this is affordable for everybody, and so that everybody can be buried with dignity and without too many worries. So you decide on which one you want to vote. I would be very happy to read what you think in comments about these two proposals. And I thank you very much for watching this more personal episode. Also, let me know, please, if you like this format as well, or if you prefer when it's really focused on some expertise level and on exchanges with a guest. But I thought it was still interesting to record this episode in this format and to propose something different. So thank you again for watching, and see you soon on Cortisol. Bye bye!